So what do companies want? What do established companies want? Okay, so in our experience, these are sort of the technologies that we can have a fair chance of licensing to established companies. So for diagnostics, they want to see fully validated diagnostics, like with good ROC curves, if possible. For therapeutics, we have a fair chance if we have novel chemistry, a novel molecule, and that modulates a validated target. Like those are hard to come by. They like issued patents, which take a long time and money, and they like validated platform technologies that work and are very robust. Sometimes they would license for freedom to operate reasons, but that's not very common. Physical sciences inventions are more difficult to license. They rely less on the patent system. Biological materials and software is easy to license. Are easier to license because usually they're less valuable too. Because usually a company is willing to pay more or less what it would cost the company to recreate the materials and the software. And they also like to buy companies.
I have a question. When you say diagnostics that you're licensing, you mean diagnostics that are patented, or?
Well, nowadays it's very difficult to get a patent on a diagnostic, right? But assuming we have a patentable diagnostic, you have different stages of development, right? You just found like something in a gel, like some signal. That's probably too early stage for an established company to take it in. So we're going to need some good stats and validation and maybe lots of samples, patients if we can, to draw the attention of established company. So as you can see, I mean, these technologies are late-stage technologies. We usually, here at Stanford, we don't get that far, right? So not that easy. So there is a little bit of disconnect. So some inventors do want to start their own company, maybe because we were unable to find a licensee, or maybe because the technology actually is a good technology and they like it for their own company. And so if you do decide to start a company, here's how the process works. We treat startup companies the same as we treat any other companies. And we market the technology. That sometimes is a source of anxiety for the startup company because they don't want OTL to give access to everybody because they want it for themselves. Usually nobody else is interested, so that's not much of a problem. If they are interested, they usually want to talk with the company to keep it as a relationship and maybe buy the company later on. So it's something good for the entrepreneurs to keep in mind and maybe establish those early relationships and get feedback. If we do have more than one interested party, then we request proposals, development proposals, and we make a decision based on what's best for the technology. That doesn't happen very often, but it has happened. We request the companies to submit a business plan and negotiate, and we negotiate the license agreement with the business person. We don't negotiate with the inventors that are still at Stanford, because if the inventor is still at Stanford, he has two hats, the Stanford hat and the company hat. But if the inventor leaves the university, we can negotiate with it. It's possible to negotiate directly with the inventor. We do need to do the conflict of interest review. So for the School of Medicine, that usually implies you go have a conversation with Barbara Flynn to sort of talk about what the plan is and when there's going to be a separation for the work for the company and the work that's the research that's going to continue here at the university. And then we negotiate the agreement. These are the reasons why we do need to do conflict of interest review for startup companies. And the terms for the license to startup companies are basically the same with a little differences. So usually the startup companies don't have a lot of cash, and we do want the startup company to invest the cash in developing the technology. And so usually the financial terms are back and loaded in the form of equity or maybe increasing royalties later on when the company is doing really well. But we don't give free licenses because we want to license to real companies. So if the company is not able to pay a minimum sign-in fee, well, it can hardly develop the technology if it doesn't have any resources. So there is a cash component as well. Yes?
What are some sort of ranges of minimum fees and equity? Just
yeah, for equity, usually.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question is, okay, how much are we talking about, right? So for equity is usually less than 5%. Minimum annual payments, I would say, in the 3-4 digits. 4-5 digits, sorry. 4-5 digits, in the low 4-5 digits. Negotiations may require flexibility. This means that usually it could be that startup companies don't really know their business model, and the business model may change. And so it's very common to come back and renegotiate with OTL. And we've done many licenses to startup companies, and so that's not a problem. Just because we negotiated an agreement doesn't mean that we can't revisit it later on. And I'm going to end with some big numbers, more numbers about OTL. This is, last year we had an operating budget of about 6.7 million. That's, we self-funded through the 15% that we take off the top, although that may change soon because one of the biggest money-making patents is going off patent in a couple of years. Patent expenses last year were 9.3 million, and so it's a lot of money. Ideally, we would like to file only patents that we can license, but it's hard to know which ones. It's very hard to predict. And of that 15% that OTL takes off the top, that's been more than we need to fund operations, and so the remaining 66 million went, not the remaining, some of it went to the OTL Research Incentive Fund, or OTL Research Fund, and other sources to fund more research at the university. Bottom line, for the licensing part, ideas are hard to license, so we'd like more developed ideas. We like to work very collaboratively with inventors, and the startup companies do require conflict of interest reviews.
The preceding program is copyrighted by the Board of Trustees of the Leland Stanford Junior University. Please visit us at med.stanford.edu.